Hello, and welcome to Creepycore and Folklore, the show about creatures, encounters, old tales, and myths. I'm your host, Iona Wayland, a dark fantasy author, mental health professional, and overall curious person. I want to join other spooky souls and hear about these unusual stories. Hello, spooky soul. Welcome back. This is episode 12, and it is a very special day for many, many reasons. I feel like it's a great omen that my fluffy black cat Cranberry and my chunky, I guess she's a Torby, Tabby Calico, or no, Tabby Tortoiseshell, Pearl, are both staring at the wall intensely where there's nothing there. So, that's a great time to start recording a Creepycore and Folklore podcast episode. But in case you didn't know, today is World Mental Health Day. And I thought that was really cool, especially because, I'm a mental health professional specialized in trauma in children, and I really like my work, and it's very fulfilling to me, and I really like being able to work with folks and see how they grow and change over and develop over the course of their life and get healthier. And so it's been really cool, just like acknowledging World Mental Health Day and putting emphasis on mental health and acknowledging mental illnesses. It's also Latinx American Heritage Month, and I'm Latina, or Latine, or Latinx. I go by all of the things. And I am very proud of my heritage, in case you couldn't notice. So we're in the midst of that. It's a really weird Heritage Month. It goes from the 15th of September to the 15th of October, so kind of odd, but I'll take it. It's also the second birthday of my debut dark fantasy novel, Ashes. It came out on October 10th, 2020, so 10/10/2020. What a wild year that was, and it was really cool to be able to come out with a book, one that I'm very proud of. So if you're into dark fantasy, you can give that a look. I have a lot of my own kind of folkloric feel to it. I pay homage to some of my own Appalachian things I've seen in the woods, as well as also having it be an allegory to living with PTSD. I think it's a really haunting read that I really enjoyed writing, and I love when, if you're into it, I love that it's out there in the world and that people enjoy reading it. So happy second year book birthday to Ashes. And today is also Indigenous Peoples Day. Something that I wanted to go over today that I really wanted to kind of focus on in today's episode is specifically for Indigenous Peoples Day. I know that Native peoples doesn't always cover all of the different tribes, so I'm going to specifically say Indigenous Peoples Day. That way I make sure I acknowledge all the Indigenous tribal folks. It was really disconcerting to me that while in the very, very beginning, when I had all these ideas for episodes and I was listing them all out, I would start going in to look into the background of some of the folklores, or I would start gathering information for an episode, only to find out that it's basically anti-Indigenous propaganda. And I'm this is gross. Other things I saw a lot of were that were anti-Indigenous sentiments. They were tales that were told that bastardized or appropriated certain aspects of Indigenous cultures, the water babies, spirit or totem animals. That's kind of a saying that's thrown around a lot, even though that's really specific and it's a spiritual practice. However, from like an author perspective, and one that I like found out while I was writing Ashes, actually really surprised me, and it's what I'm going to be focusing on in this particular episode. And it's why I titled the episode the way I did. Now, the thing I'm going to cover, it's been said to not even say the name of this malevolent entity. However, the name of this thing is thrown around a lot, especially in pop culture, which I'll get to later. It's one I see the most. And it sounds like, so I'm going to say kind of what it sounds like. The name Wendy and the verb go. And if you put those together, it sounds like that monster or that demon. So I'm going to talk about where it comes from, why we don't say the name, and how to educate others about it, and maybe even take some of the criticisms if you find out that like some of the things you're saying or like some of the things you're writing or incorporating creatively might accidentally be appropriation without you realizing it, and then like how to change that about like the work you're doing, because it's no fun learning that you're like, whoops, I appropriated something, or I said something wrong, or I contributed to bastardizing a religion or a spiritual practice. But when you know better, you do better, like Maya Angelou says. So that's what we're going to cover in today's episode. So as I mentioned before, when it came to colonization, there was a lot of anti-Indigenous propaganda, like completely fabricated stories, completely fabricated, whether it was like infantilization or making Indigenous folks or those that they were colonizing seem animalistic in any kind of way. People would make up stories about them. If someone came across a spiritual practice or a type of prayer or a ritual that they didn't understand, people would often misunderstand it. Or on the flip side, people would become fascinated with it or be interested in it, but they would embellish or sensationalize what they were seeing, which is where all of these different situations are where a lot of misinformation about, and I'm just going to call it the Wendy, where the Wendy came from, where Wendy came from. So, of course, I'll be saying more about this later, but Wendy is seen more religiously, like it's related to a religion. So to be respectful, I will not be saying the full name of this malevolent entity. I'll be saying Wendy for short. So the Anishinaabe peoples describe the Indigenous peoples who made up the Great Lakes region of Canada and the US. They include the Saulteaux, Ojibwe, Odawa, Potawatomi, Mississauga, Nipissing, and Algonquian peoples. I'm going to be primarily covering the Algonquian peoples, spirituality and tellings surrounding the Wendy. Wendy means evil spirit who devours mankind. It's considered a demon or evil winter spirit. I hate winter, so this makes a lot of sense to me. It's said to take over humans who have partaken in selfishness and gluttony. And it's said to stand 15 feet tall, and to be sometimes as tall as like a pine tree. So I know that where I come from, there are these like really tall pines. They'll have these really heavy needles to the point where it almost looks like a weeping willow, but it's a pine tree. They can be really old and super tall and very like tall and thin, and that kind of I wish I knew the types of trees they were. But just having like that 15-foot, like that they can be up to 15 feet is just a very astounding super scary height to try and fathom of a demonic entity like that. It's said to be monstrous, gaunt, pale, have ash gray skin that's pulled tightly over their bones. They have sunken in eyes, but the eyes glow. I know that I personally get very freaked out, even with my own animals, like seeing their eyes glow, whether it's a flash of a camera or just like the way they glint, whether it's day or night, like that reflection in the eyes is really freaky. And so to see nothing but these tall glowing eyes, like way, way high up, like higher up than anything should be, is really, really scary. They're said to have missing toes and fingers, sometimes missing lips that they have chewed off, long, jagged, yellow teeth, long tongues, bald or have white hair on top of their head that's matted with blood. They're said to smell like death and decay. And they're said to shriek before lunging, like you know that you're about to be captured or eaten, because they will shriek before lunging at you. Their hands are long and bony with sharp claws at the ends. Some will even say that the claws are made out of ice. There's lots of imagery of ice, probably because this demon is said to be a winter demon or an ice demon. The claws, like I said, were made of ice. Sometimes their whole bodies will sometimes be covered in a sheet of ice or encased in ice. And sometimes their hearts will be coated in ice, which makes them very difficult to kill. So even though I'm calling this a Wendy, like to be on the safe side, there's actually in like the native tongue of each of the tribes, they have a particular other name that you're not supposed to say it because it's supposed to lure the demon over. And I know that just like growing up with the particular religion that I was raised in, not that I believe in it now, but even still, like I'll get really, really worried if there are particular demon names that people will say. I know that makes me really, really uncomfortable, and I still sometimes believe that that's something that can happen. And so I consider it really like hurtful if someone were to bring up particular demon names like around me, or I fear for someone if they were to bring up those demon names on their own, because it's said that it like brings that entity forward and draws them to you or draws them to objects around you and welcomes that into your life. And so you're not supposed to say the name. And whether it's the like offshoot name that sounds like Wendy, or whether it's the native tongue name, what I find really scary is that no matter the tribe, there's a consistent appearance across all of the tribes that make up the Great Lakes region of Canada and the US. So all of the tribes that make up the Anishinaabe people, this demon has consistently shown up no matter where they're from in that northern region during the winter, and no matter what tribe they're from, it's made an appearance. So it's said to have an insatiable appetite for human flesh. It gets bigger after every person it eats, but the bigger it gets, the hungrier it gets. It is a warning against greed and selfishness, especially during the winter months when rations and supplies need to be abided by. However, this demon would come to be terribly misconstrued. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. There was this fascination and push for like quote alternative end quote depictions of monsters and zombies in Hollywood, like that caused authors and screenwriters to produce an amalgamation of like forest spirits like stags, bears, caribou, etc., while doing the thing they were told not to do, which is to use the name. So it's shown up in old issues of Hulk and Wolverine. It's shown up in Charmed. It's shown up in Grimm. It's shown up in Supernatural. It's shown up in both the book and the movie's Pet Sematary. Video games like Until Dawn and Fallout 76 have Wendy inside of it. It's even shown up in My Little Pony. So these are things that are directly being said to avoid and to not do. And it's whether I feel like there are two schools of thought here. Either you believe this thing exists and you protect other people and you protect yourself and you're respectful and you don't say the name and you don't include the personification of it, as well as like contributing spirit animals into work incorrectly, might I add, and squishing its depiction into this strange horror spoof thing. Or you don't believe it exists, but even still recognizing that there are people in the world who do believe it exists. It's a part of their religion / spiritual practices, and that it is harmful to say the name and to depict it in such a way because it is a representation of greed and gluttony and basically like taking what's not yours, which I find very ironic, is like this take, hunger, like nothing's good enough. And that's eventually what it was used for, is like, oh, I'm hungry for more material. I'm hungry to put a different spin on my horror movie or my horror short story or whatever it is. Like, oh, I want to take. So I think it's very interesting the different ways it was thought of and it wasn't taken seriously. And so now we have this rampant issue where it's kind of glorified and thrown in there as like to be edgy or something. So what can we do about this? If you're a creative, you can start by not using its name. If you're comfortable, you could even educate another person about why it's better not to use. And it's up to them if they're going to be receptive to it. You know, it's the whole, here's the information, do with it what you will. It's your choice what kind of person you want to be or what kind of work you want to put out there into the world. You could also I know it doesn't feel good when you learn that something you're using is like not an original idea. It's a really shitty feeling, honestly. You're like, I don't want to be that person. I didn't mean to be that person. Oh my gosh. It gets into like panic / defense mode. Like, oh, I didn't mean to, I don't want to be like that. So just maybe taking a second, recognizing that you didn't know before, but you know now, and seeing it as like a cool challenge to challenge yourself to dip into that creative well a little bit more and to dig a bit deeper into your own abilities and craft and see what kind of terrifying entity you can come up with without harming or insulting other communities. So I thought this was a cool one to cover for Indigenous Peoples Day, especially because the warmer months. Oh my gosh, my fluffy Kachu came up to hang out. I want to see if I can capture him purring again. I know a couple folks said that they really liked hearing his purr before, so let me see if I can do it again. He's such a happy, fluffy boy. Oh my goodness. But I know that we're in full-blown spooky season now. Fall is slowly going to turn into winter. And I know that I don't know if you're like this, but October is my creative month. I am very into I feel really renewed during October. I'm also a mood reader slash writer slash watcher, I guess, viewer. And I want to consume all of the spooky material. And I know that more and more this was starting to pop up, and I only learned about this, I want to say 4 years ago. I had no idea. It was cool too, because when I found authors and screenwriters and artists who created these beasts or these monstrosities that were genuinely terrifying and could really creep me out, and they were their own thoughts, I was like, man, my respect is through the roof for you. And that was really fucked up that you came up with that thing. and it's this creepy they came up with this creepy thing that was totally out of their imagination. That's way cooler to me than ripping off, even if it's not specifically the Wendy, even if it's something else that's just been redone. It's such a fresh take, which makes it all the more horrifying. So I thought that was really neat to just give a brief history of where that came from, why it's best not to use it. And I hope you have a great spooky season so far. I guess depending on where you live, where I live, I see many different seasons changing. The leaves have changed and the air is very crisp, and I see lots of deer. And the cornfields are kind of those husks, they're that golden color. So, oh my gosh, and pumpkins. We need to get pumpkins. Oh my goodness. I'm not prepared. I would love to hear how your October is going. Do you love October? Do you reject October? Are you a mood consumer like me, where you want to have all the spooky stuff, or does this kind of season freak you out? I definitely want to know. Also, hey to all the Latinx folks out there. Hey to all the indigenous folks out there. Hey to all the spooky folks out there. And hey to all the dark fantasy lovers out there. And hey to all the people who are taking care of their mental health. This is a big fucking month. This is a big deal. So I hope you're doing well, and I will talk to you more next week. Thanks to all you spooky souls out there for listening to Creepy Core and Folklore. Follow on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok if you're looking for more uncanny content. If you have your own tales to tell, you can email creepycoreandfolklore@gmail.com. If you liked this, please leave a review wherever you get your podcasts, or tell a friend who might enjoy these stories to spread the word. If you're interested in dark fantasy, check out my Hollowverse series. Ashes is available now in paperback and ebook on Amazon and audiobook on Audible, and the sequel is underway. I'm Iona Wayland, and I'll see you next time.